Hello everybody and welcome to my book vlog. First, can I apologise for the fact that it looks like I'm in heaven. I am not in heaven, it hasn't come to that. It is because I have recently moved, which is why I apologise I haven't vlogged for a couple of weeks, but also explains why it might be a bit echoey, this video, and why I'm surrounded by white walls. So apologies for that. But anyway, I'm glad to be back doing a book vlog because we're talking about a book that took me by surprise. We're talking about C.E. Morgan's The Sport of Kings. Now this book was published last year and I saw it around in a few bookshops and I'd sort of seen the headlines of a few reviews and I thought, it's not really my book, The Sport of Kings. I hate horse racing. I'm not interested in that world or the people in it. Well, thank goodness it was shortlisted for the Bailey's Prize because that pushed it back on my radar. And I'm so glad that I read this because this is a terrific book, a monumental achievement by C.E. Morgan. For this book is barely about horse racing at all. In fact, C.E. Morgan has given herself the extraordinary ambition here of breathing life back into the great American novel. This is a sweeping epic over 3 generations of the same family and looks to tackle the themes and issues that remain profound in American society today. Racism, misogyny, violence, the poverty, the division between rich and poor, the American medical system, prisons, the weight of history, manifest destiny, and all the rest. And in it, C.E. Morgan has achieved something absolutely profound because this is, yes, it's a big book. It's over 500 pages. It is dense, it is richly layered, but it is brilliantly executed. And for all these great themes and subjects, C.E. Morgan has kept her characters at the center of the story for what is at times a heartbreaking depiction of ordinary lives. So, The Sport of Kings. Well, it centres around a man called Henry Forge. At the beginning of this book, Henry Forge is only a young boy. He is the only son of John Henry Forge, a rich landowner in Kentucky, a man who is a violent racist, a misogynist, and who is obsessed with pure breeds and the line of history. He is a white settler who can sort of knows his family line back all the way to the white settlers after the revolution. He is a man to be feared. He is a tyrant. But as Henry Forge grows up, he decides that he does not want to continue his father's legacy in the estate, a subject which divides the two men. And when John Henry Forge dies in the 1960s, Henry Forge makes the leap and turns the vast Kentucky estate into a breeding ground for winning horse races. Now, the horse racing is barely mentioned at all. It works as an allegory because what we look at here is the way we treat the horses, but also that's how we treat humans. Whether we break them in, break their spirit, put them out to pasture when they're past their best, always want to see the male breed and not interested in the fillies, obsessed with bloodline lineage, obsessed with pure breeding. That's where the horse racing comes in. For about 300 pages, horses are barely mentioned because what this book examines isn't just Henry Forge and his father, but the lives that surround them and also the lives of the people who work on his estate. Running parallel to this central story is another story about a young man called Allmon Shaughnessy, a young man growing up in Cincinnati who is about as far removed from Henry Forge's privilege as you can imagine. Allmon is the only son to a black woman and her errant white Irish lover, and he has very much comes up on the wrong side of the tracks. He gets drawn into gangs, drawn into drugs, drawn into violence, and as all his childhood experiences mount up, he ends up with a time in prison. However, when he comes out of prison, he decides that he wants to commit to career as a vocation as a groom. And that's what brings him into the life of Henry Forge when he goes to work on Henry Forge's estate. However, Henry Forge has begun to replicate his father. He has become exactly the same kind of racist, misogynistic tyrant that he always swore he never would be. He has become his father. The chain of history. And so we witness the clash of these two men and the fallout from their time together. The Sport of Kings is, like I say, it is the characters who drive this. There were periods of this, particularly in Allmon's story, which are utterly heartbreaking. And it is a huge testament to the success of C.E. Morgan that she's able to get under the skin of lives and of the vernacular and the reality of experiences she never, obviously as a white woman from Ohio, could never have. She has that normally is sort of treacherous. You sort of think, oh, where can I go? What do I have to learn as a writer to sort of be able to write truthfully about experiences that I don't have? Well, she has achieved this with ease. Well, it seems with ease. I'm sure it wasn't. This is, like I said, even though it's over 500 pages, it is beautifully executed. It does take time to read. Like I said, it is dense. There are some passages where you feel there's sort of almost too much description of the landscape, too much description of a night. And then there are other sections where you feel that the description is almost too sparse, and actually you would like to hear a bit more of what it looks like in Kentucky landscape. However, overall, I was completely blown away by The Sport of Kings. I thought this is a terrific book. I've noticed that there are some people on Goodreads who say they've given up after 50 pages, 100 pages, and that really breaks my heart, because the real meat of this book is absolutely terrific, and how necessary and relevant and powerful all its themes remain today. This is the excellent The Sport of Kings.